since TikTok finally allows me to do 10-minute videos again, I'm going to take advantage of that and do a quickie on the updated information that I have. Thank you, 5D educators. They are just growing in numbers. I don't even know where to start. I'm so happy. So I found out in a master class recently that the Buddhist psychologists actually describe the ventral vagus nervous system as the newer nervous system. Once we became mammals, apparently, something like that. You can look up polyvagal theory, Dr. Stephen Porges, or just polyvagal theory and start looking into it. But the verbiage is what I'm talking about, because I didn't know of it as the updated. So that was considered an updated version of our nervous system. Obviously, we all still have the parasympathetic reptilian, the older, which is involving our fight, flight, and freeze. So the basic safety behaviors, and also attach, cry, collapse, submit, please, appease have also been added. But essentially, the difference between the reptilian and the mammalian, because the updated version only came around once we moved into this mammalian version of ourselves. And when you look at the brain and how it develops, that too, the brainstem is the reptilian. Then we have the mammalian, which involves our limbic system, which is our social system, which is why the ventral vagal nervous system actually activates or deactivates. And then the cortex or neocortex, the whole cortex is the actually latest update to our brain. And obviously latest is not like now. So when you find out that is very straightforward to be a person who uses your integrated mind, by the way, thanks to being in a restorative embodied self. But see, here's where all these words, again, I learned from the lovely somatics and trauma experts, all the lovely hours that I'm spending learning so that I can help other people who want to tap into their infinite higher human consciousness potential experience. And really, the 5D is my group, because, I learned about 5D, I think it was 2007 or 10, or forget, it's been so long. So the whole spirituality came later with Sadhguru. Thank you so much for existing. So yoga and yogic sciences, which really is with the human science stuff, all the good neuroscientists, the good psychoeducators, and I say good because they're the ones who are sharing the updated information openly and with very much grace and ease, and not being rigid and closing people off and making them into an identity. This is very beautiful. You'll find that those who are good educators don't use words that are rigid and then make people fight each other. They try to bring peace. This is what a good educator would want. To bring peace means to bring conversation, which means you begin with, thank you, lovely anthropologist. His name is something Fueges, or I forget. Anthony. It's always the big think and wow. Awesome. Follow them. They have all great educators actually. So here's where, as he was describing beliefs which equal reality to people, I was thinking about the 4D, 3D spectrum, and I was thinking about a lot of individuals who I see interacting with each other in information from an adaptive child, trying to prove they're right or saying someone's wrong and trying to prove they're right through their list of data points that they'll present. But it's not even that. It's the part of how they get worked up and they're in their reptilian nervous system response, because they're, again, this is where rigid educators, you see them, they're not open to all information. They actually tell it to you like they know all the laws, all the rules, and they can't. Physically, they can't. They can't know every subject matter, so their logic can make sense to them. But the fact that they're like this is what a person who's in the Enlightenment soul age will be like, I don't know about you. You actually look a lot like a grandiose human being who basically thinks you're that. You have a bunch of flock that follow you. I'm not sure that you're actually opening minds. It feels more like you're creating your flock and you want to be all together, which is great, but how about you soften up and remember that it's one globe. So again, the fight, flight, freeze are the older ways that our ancestors, when one with animals, were using. There's a whole explanation of how we moved into mammalian, and I forget it because I need to finish my polyvagal theory course. I only did the first class, and so all these different data points to say how easy it is for people to choose love if only they learned why they aren't in a state of physiological love. Now, to be fair, not everybody has a secure attachment, and so that is very important to note, because they will be inclined to withdraw because of not getting contingent communication. And in fact, I've met the different areas of non-secure attachments, avoidant, ambivalent, and then I've also met disorganized attachment, which has a secondary with their secure or avoidant or ambivalent. And this is for the attachment researchers that use categories, not the ones who do the styles. Those I also have learned some from, and they have the similar words, similar structure, but they come from different research ends of the spectrum. But long story short, once a body of any person begins to experience a safe harbor, so that means they get to meet someone, the lucky people who get to meet the 5DC enlightenment soul age group people, so that would be an unconditionally loving human being who's not rigid and saying, if you're not like me, I'm going to cut you off, or if you tell me one word, then I don't like you. So see, here's where, when I meet rigid people, or ignorant people for that matter, the ones who need to prove they're right, and they get very much in their poofied up, which, by the way, they don't actually get that. I'm 43. I learned as a teenager how not to poke those, because I don't want to deal with what would be a version of the person that isn't really their best version, because now their brainstem with all of that anger is filling up their mind, and I'm not really talking to a person. I'm talking to an angry version of a person who thinks that they know more than me, and they may be able to regurgitate information to me and give me a list of why, but that's really not what being a human is all about, nor education, by the way, or actually having an adult conversation. So the reality is our reptilian, again, nervous system serve the purpose. I mean, with my lovely panic attacks, I definitely can tell you when they come about, it's not fun to have the anxiety and whatever else comes about, but I definitely don't use that modality when I try to actually be a social person and back off, or, look for comfort or whatever it is. And I know it's not anger, so, hey, I guess. But when I see people getting all angry, I can tell they're not really caring about wanting to have a conversation, or when people are reactive, or when they're manipulating, gaslighting, ghosting, all these other activities that adaptive children do because they haven't handled their emotions. They haven't learned how to engage in their newer nervous system, the ventral vagal nervous system, and that's because their oaths, others in the self, in their actual default mode network is still scanning since they were one. We will, the first year of life, your right brain hemisphere is what develops. Then after that, I think the left begins, something along those lines. I'm giving gist of information. Remember, it's food for thought. But I can give you all my sources and go find it and list it out, even though I wouldn't. You can just, I'll give you the sources. You can go learn the material and memorize it. But the gist of it is that when you don't have an optimal environment, the right brain is not going to be able to have a developed corpus callosum that connects the left and right, fully developed. I believe it's either the amygdala or the hippocampus, or the hippocampus, that's probably the one, and the prefrontal cortex. So there's an actual way the brain is not as integrated. So adaptive children, by the way, they're in safety behaviors because they're protecting the wounded child. So there's all these things that people don't know about each other. They will easily identify with the belief systems that have been around for a long time versus try to choose to be compassionate, try to choose love, try to be respectful towards each other, and actually tend to the emotions that arise. Seems very straightforward. I mean, the only people that I know that for now still deal with my 2-year-old, and I always say sorry, my mother, my twin sister. Other than that, I've pretty much learned, thanks to being taught by not only my mother, but all educators, how to be polite. And so temperament is actually one of those first things you learn, how to stay in a state of ease, but that's only for the enlightenment soul age group particularly, or at the very least, 5D person, which is unconditionally loving, oneness consciousness, integrated mind, restorative embodied self. Tune in for more, and if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. You find my email everywhere. It's been a great 10 minutes. I hope you're having a wonderful day. See you all again next time.